Well, here's a story you definitely wouldn't see from any previous administration, at least not in my lifetime. Today I'm going to tell you how a state is trying to ban the AR-15, illegally by the way, and ban the magazines that go along with them. A federal court then struck that ban down, and President Trump sent his DOJ into that state to do this. Now, President Trump has not been afraid to take the fight to the state in which rights are being restricted in order to fight for gun owners. And so this is one of those things that's not like a lot of politicians will just say, hey, we're going to fight for the Second Amendment, and then you never see them, until they want to be reelected, right, and get gun owners' vote. This is like a proactive thing. Actually, it's more of a retroactive thing that President Trump and his DOJ is doing, right? They're not just letting it sit out there and wait for new legislation. They're taking the fight right to this state. It's very interesting. What I also want to talk about is how these states are getting around this, because technically there's like 3 criteria in place that restricts these types of bans, and yet these states are getting around it. I want to kind of tell you how they're doing that, and let you know what President Trump is up to with this one. It's a spicy one, man, and so I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know what you think about this story. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and jump right in. So this one is coming from Illinois, and they passed what is called the Protect Illinois Communities Act, which is one of the most restrictive bans in the country. Essentially, it bans the AR, it bans any magazine over 10 rounds, it bans future ownership or transfers of any kind of AR, and it makes anybody that legally owns an AR have to register them. It is checking every single box of what gun owners fear the most. Now, in November 2024, right after President Trump got reelected, Judge Stephen McGlynn actually struck this ban down. Now, he was going, I think, for a permanent injunction on this, but it ended up expiring after 30 days. So technically, this ban is still in place. So Trump then sends his DOJ, I think this was back in June, to the state to fight against the ban in court. Let that sink in. The government, under President Trump's direction, sent the DOJ, or a representative of the DOJ, in court to fight for gun owners. Tell me how often, if ever, you've ever seen a headline like that. Well, I can tell you, never. Obama, Biden, Bush, Clinton, nor even Reagan was willing to go that far. Remember, I know I said Reagan, some ears might perk up, but after he was out of office, admittedly, not in a position to change policy, but at the end of the day, he said that so-called assault weapons should be banned from common use. He was one of 3 previous presidents, I think he actually wrote this, to Clinton, because that then helped the case for the assault weapons ban in '94. So here's the case that Trump's DOJ is making. You can't ban a weapon that's in common use by lawful gun owners for lawful purposes. Now, they're not just pulling this out of their butts. This is actually a part of the 3 criteria: the Heller case, Tano case, Bruen case. In combination, not only to say that a firearm must be in common use for regular law-abiding gun owners used for lawful purposes. It doesn't only say that, but now you have to look at history, right? A politician can't just come in and say, I don't like this gun, we're going to ban it. It's going to get struck down almost every single time, or at least that's how it should work. Now, here's the thing about the AR. There are an estimated 20 to 50 million of these guns out there. We don't really know, and that's not anybody's business. What we do know is that there's enough of them to say, absolutely, that's a common use gun. As a matter of fact, they are the most popular rifle in America, period. The magazines that go with them. It's estimated there are close to 1 billion detachable magazines in the United States alone. By the way, 450 million of those billion are like 30-round magazines. These are standard capacity magazines for the AR. I mean, there's more ARs than F-150s, right? These guns are extremely common. And so when you look at the common use argument, there really is none to be made any longer. Americans have made this known for a really long time. The AR is here to stay, period. But here's how the states get away with it. They will then use the criteria set forth in the 94 assault weapons ban to basically change the definition of what these rifles are. So they'll say, okay, if it has a detachable magazine plus 2 or 3 of these features, some states have moved to 1 feature, flash hider, collapsible stock, pistol grip, etc., then it's no longer a common use AR, it's actually one of those scary assault rifles. See, they're playing semantics with this whole thing, because once you take away those features or just add those features, you have the same rifle. You have the same capability. You have the same function. And some courts, unfortunately, just go along with this, right? They say, oh, it's not a permanent ban on the gun itself. It's just the features. If it has these features, we consider an assault weapon, and then hence they can go through with the ban. Now, other courts, like in this case, they say, no, this is a common use weapon. These features have no impact on the rifle itself. It's the same gun. And by the way, sometimes I think people's ignorance about the function of a firearm, normally I wouldn't use that as like an argument against people, because the gun still has the same identity, right, if you will, of what its capabilities are. But in this case, it absolutely is important, because lawmakers will use these features against Americans in order to pass these bans. So if you don't know anything about a firearm, that's fine, but you should educate yourself a little bit before you're just willing to pass a ban on the most common weapon in America. So anyways, getting back to what I was saying before, some judges will say, well, no, you can't do this. They will file, like in this case, an injunction. Well, the state will appeal, time will go on, the ban will stay in place, years go by, and people are still restricted from the rights. Sometimes they just sit on it. A lot of times they know it's probably not going to be held up in court initially, or they're going to get sued or whatever, but they know once they file the appeal, no action is taken, they just got their way for a couple of years at least. But then it's like, okay, what about Bruin? Well, the thing with Bruin, as strong as it is, and as much as we're starting to see some of the positive implications from that, courts don't necessarily catch up as quickly to what the new law says until it gets brought to their attention so much, or I guess in this case, where you have the DOJ literally going to the state to take the fight for gun owners to the state in which they live. The pressure almost has to be put on them before there's any action almost. Now, there's a lot more little nuance and stuff that goes along with this. I'm not a lawyer, nor do I understand all aspects of the law and how it works. So I totally admit that. But there are some pretty simple things here and some pretty common workarounds, if you will, when it comes to this. This is literally giving the fight for gun owners, the AR, and the magazines associated with them, kind of the federal weight that they've needed for a really long time. And if this gets to the Supreme Court, this may be kind of like the final straw to say, you can't ban this gun, right? Because we've seen, even with Heller, Catano, Bruin, states will continuously kind of muddy the waters to try to get around a legal precedent that they shouldn't be able to. But Trump and his DOJ have said, hey, we're going to take this to your state. And like I said, if they can get it to the Supreme Court and they look at it with all of this criteria now in place, I can't see the AR ban standing any longer, right? So then you would have not only Illinois, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, Washington State, Maryland, California. Each ban can then subsequently fall. Might take a little bit of time to get there, but this is what could be a huge stepping stone in the fight to make sure that the AR-15 is never touched again. And rifles like it, because they will always associate like rifles along with those. Love to hear your opinion, man. What do you think about this? Is this kind of a big deal? I see it as a really big deal. It's never happened before. We've never seen the AR-15 on the federal level being fought by the same government that just, I mean, think about it, like 35 years ago was looking to ban this gun entirely. It's pretty amazing, dude. And that's why voting matters for sure. Love to hear your opinion. Let me know what you think. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold 'em down.